Action. How's my hair?
It's good. I saw you have a comb and you got to keep the comb handy.
Yeah, without that, all is lost. It's holding me together.
It is. I was in traffic the other day and I was trying to like comb my hair with my hand and I'm still getting used to long hair, I guess, because it just did not work. I never tried to do it, did not work. So.
Dude, I'm ready to shave mine all off, but I don't know. That would be like a life shift that I don't know if I'm quite ready for, but I'm getting close.
That's fair. It could be kind of something that's building up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can't rush it.
You can't rush it, for sure, because you don't want to, I mean, there's going to be some loss, but you're losing something, but also too, you don't want to, I guess, regret it,
For sure.
So. That's how I feel about tattoos sometimes. I've always thought about getting tattoos, and I know what I want to get on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just at the point where I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta take the leap, though.
That's true. That's true. That's true. I think songwriting is like that too, actually, because because sometimes you have having an idea, and then you might not have the initial excitement. The initial spark for a song idea, but then taking that leap of faith, kind of like you were saying, allows and spending just a little bit more time on it, might open up something cool. So
yeah, focusing on there's the inspiration aspect of it, and then there's the work aspect of it, and sometimes you gotta let that work part take center stage, and other times the inspiration part will take center stage, but you gotta make room for both, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself? I skipped over that.
Yeah, sure. You're chilling. Yeah. Hi. My name is Danny McDermed. I am a local musician in Chicago. I play guitar. I sing. I write songs, and I perform solo. And I also perform in bands too. And I'm just really grateful to be in a really good community and meet good people like you, and having the opportunity to just chat about art and music and life. It's really nice a really nice way to step away from life and then turn the content of life into something else. So
for sure,
thank you for having me.
That's kind of my whole idea with this. I mean, we've known each other a couple of years, maybe a year or two in the open mic scene, but you're one of the people on a long list of people that I haven't really had the chance to get down and chat with as much as I'd like to. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I started doing this. Yeah. So thanks for coming out.
Of course. Yeah.
And let's jump into some other interesting questions. When did you first get interested in music, and what are some of your earliest memories or songs that you remember catching your attention?
That's a good question. I would say there are two sides to the first music I was introduced to. The first, it came from, if I'm being honest, it was church music and Kids Bop. Of the early 2000s. They had those Kids Bop CDs of the modern pop hits, and whether or not they were Britney Spears songs or Justin Timberlake songs or Maroon 5 songs. And so Maroon 5 songs came a little later, but yeah, so those were the first two. That was and that was when I was very young, before I even been introduced to guitar. It was only when in third grade, when I was introduced to Guitar Hero, the video game. No joke. My dad bought it for us, and then we liked it so much he started teaching us, and he introduced the real guitar to us. And so the lineage of my inspirations started with classic rock, eventually grew to hard rock, and then metal, some metal, and then eventually, as I got into high school, I started getting into EDM, underground EDM YouTube channels, because I just really loved the melodicism of that kind of music. It was very it was very addicting for my developing mind at that time, because I liked the ability, I liked guitar solos and the melodicism of a great guitar solo, and the speed at which some of those synths or piano lines in certain EDM songs came through was just so cool. So once I was still playing guitar, and I had been in bands, up until like college through high school, and then once college came around, I got into this underground scene, like new retro wave, just basically recycled sounds of the '80s, and puts a modern pop spin on it. A lot of like synthesizers and like drum machines, and then towards the end of college, it was Japanese city pop was like my main thing. And then after I finished my master's degree, it was John Mayer, which is like starting in 2022, and that's when I started actually getting into songwriting.
Okay. What John Mayer album would that have been? The one with what was like the real '80s influenced one?
That was the Sob Rock one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one came out in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one was like, it was an interesting album for him because it was kind of like an outlier.
Yeah.
In that it's not that I can't speak for him, but it was a different origin, I would say, compared to his other
came from a
records.
different angle.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
and but heavily John Mayer in all of 2022, 2023. That's what literally got me into songwriting and like helped me first learn how to do it. And then eventually, I started to expand more and listen to new artists to the point where like I kind of have a musical palette of which like I like to be inspired and draw from. So yeah, that's kind of the lineage of it, I would say.
So you only started writing guitar songs, that's just like a few years ago, huh?
Yeah.
And before then, were you doing mostly covers?
Mostly covers. Like I would contribute in the bands that I was in, like a lot of the times they were just covers.
Mm-hmm.
But my band in high school, I was contributing just the songwriting, but it was mostly like part based and whatnot.
Sure.
I would fill in the part here.
Not the song itself necessarily.
Yeah. So that was still a great learning experience. It was good guys. So, and then, but yeah, it wasn't really until like 2022 where I was like, okay, like I started listening to John. I started like really wanting to write songs because I had this point where like, am I gonna try to play as fast as well as Eddie Van Halen, because he was one of my biggest inspirations, or am I gonna like learn to write songs and play these in a different setting? So yeah, only writing for like three years now.
Okay.
And but I'm really grateful for everyone that I've learned along the way with. Like I've been, as you know, like all the open micers around the city and then the scene, they're just so cool. They're so goated, and even you too. And it's like and like it's a real blessing to be around good people and be around good music to like learn from, because I wouldn't call myself like self-taught, because like I've met so many people I've been able to like learn from along the way. So
for sure. And I think it's so valuable. I mean, we spend all our time listening and learning from people that are like on the radio, or like you buy the CD and like you're quite a bit removed from them, but it's so important to get that face to face and that community, you know what I mean? That's a whole different form of influence, and I think a more important one probably in a lot of ways.
Yeah, dude, you're so right, because that reminds me, because Mikey Harms and I, we were at Uncommon Ground at the open mic like several Mondays ago, and he whipped out this new song, and I was like, at the end of it, I asked him like, yo, did you like superimpose your A section over your the A section over like your bridge? Mm-hmm. I might be getting that wrong, but like if I remember properly, but I thought it was so, and I was like yeah, and it's like, and he was like he thought about it for a second and I was like, yeah, and I was like, oh, and I was like oh, that was so cool, it was killer, because it was just a very cool move, and like you're right, having those intimate situations and those intimate interactions where like you are so close and hands-on with the music being made, that's a real healthy thing.
And it seems more attainable, I guess, than like someone you see on a poster or like on TV.
That's true. Yeah, and it's like knowing where your eggs are coming from. It's like knowing where your milk's coming from. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a cool comparison. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Next question was about your guitar playing. So you're like obviously an extremely proficient guitar player.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm decent.
Yeah, you're decent. So you've been playing for a long time. What's your practice regimen like? Like how much work? We're speaking about like the work aspect of music earlier. How does that play into keeping your guitar chops up and like your journey as a guitarist?
Yeah. So for me, the main way that I practiced for a long time really was it wasn't, I didn't have, like growing up I didn't have a heavy practice regimen. Like I was involved with a lot of sports in high school, and like I was doing a lot of school, and because I was trying to get an engineering degree, and so like guitar was just kind of like this outlet. But my main form of practice was learning songs, like learning parts or entire songs, right, and trying to internalize like the content, or also like practicing improvisation with like either the backing tracks or sometimes EDM songs, or even like EDMs, some of those EDM songs that I would find, or playing along. That's something I would do too, like specifically like playing along to like EDM songs, but following the melody along with them, right? And being able to like internalize the melodicism, which I really like to do. And so so nowadays, I would say my practice regimen is primarily, there's the drilling side of it, right? Like exercise based
scales.
There's scales and then exercises, right? Then there's like improvisation. And then the other side of it is whether or not it's a lot of times it would be like trying to like get my ear better, train my ear a little bit better, and that can come from a combination of songwriting as well as like learning new songs, but without like tabs, without like trying to look anything up. So because for me, like my goal isn't necessarily to be fast. I going based off like the lineage of like what I listen to, like I really just like I'm a sucker for a good melody. Like it just and so a lot of those times, like it didn't have to be the fastest thing or whatnot, it's like some of my favorite Eddie Van Halen solos are like off of his 5150 album, right? Because of just how dialed back they are, and just how like I can just hum them and sit with them and wherever I am. So drill based, meaning exercise based, meaning like using like staircase exercises or spider exercises for finger like aerobics and like and dexterity, and then outside of that, then it's like the improv, where it's like I will have whether it's like I'm using a backing track or I'm playing along with a song that like has relatively like simple like structure and also chord progression, and the goal being to know the fretboard, right? And then when it comes to like the ear from the songwriting and learning new songs, that comes from me trying to use like my audiation, my ear in here to when I'm writing, to be able to think about like, okay, like instead of me playing something from muscle memory, like can I imagine what the next note would be, whatever position of the guitar that I'm in, and then that and then me, so that trains, what I think it trains my ear to like know, it's like, okay, like if I was in a solo setting, or if I'm in like if I'm soloing, or if I am in another songwriting situation, right, where I know what the next note could be, right? I know what my options are on the fretboard depending on where my hand is. And so that's the overall goal, is just to understand the guitar when it comes to like my practice regimen. I guess that's the three sections of it.
Yeah, so it's like the physical aspect of it, being able to get around the fretboard, and then also like the musical imagination aspect of it, and tuning into whatever a song needs.
Exactly, yeah, and then the kind of middle of that road is the execution with the improv and whatnot, with it's like a backing track or something. But I will say, like, a lot of my practice does come from when I'm like writing songs, because it allows me to like explore like what different combinations of chords or different voicings or different ways of saying the same thing. Whether it's like you know, an A or a major seventh, but then it's trying to say in it a different way or whatnot.
Sure.
So that, and it still fills in the spaces of understanding like the guitar as an instrument. So because that's all I really want. Like, I don't want to necessarily play fast. I'm kind of a slow learner, so like, it's just being able to understand the guitar and where things are, whichever, you know, with whether I'm writing a song or whatever key I'm in. So
got it.
Yeah.
All right. Nice one. So that kind of ties in a little bit to your songwriting. I wanted to ask about your recent EP, In Hiding.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot I want to ask about, but what would you say is like the overall message or like influence behind those songs? How did that project come about, I guess?
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, I really, that project it was
a lot of depth to it. A lot of
it is, but also too, those are some of the first songs I started writing. So if they feel to me, they feel sophomore.
Sure.
They feel juvenile in a way, but like I still love and appreciate them.
That's good. That's good. You can still find a way to appreciate them. A lot of people I don't know, don't have the most healthy attitude to their work, so that's good that you.
Yeah, they're things I brought to life, you know.
Sure.
Like, they're like children in a way, and so like I can't hate on them. Don't want to abandon. Exactly. Yeah. And that In Hiding is essentially just symbolic in the sense of that those first songs, those four songs, it's a collection of songs, some of the first ones that I wrote when I started writing in 2022. And they symbolize myself as an individual, almost coming out of the hiding that you could argue was like a deep depression, coming out of like my master's program for college, for back in like 2021. And so that state of mind I was in, like, you know, had been around for some time, and the release of In Hiding to me symbolizes like, oh, okay, I've been working on being a songwriter, and I've been kind of shutting myself away to work on songs, to work on music, and to develop this new person, essentially, that I want it to be. And In Hiding, so it represents me, like, just opening myself up and showing the world, like, hey, you know what, like, this is what I was doing while I was in hiding. This is what I was doing while I was you know, after I locked myself away. Yeah. And now I've opened myself up again to the world. That's part of the reason why, like, I chose the photography the way it was. Like, I'm in a tree. Like, if you look on the top right corner, I'm in a tree. And it's like that was so silly, because like I climbed up there with my hands. It's like 20 feet up, and then I, like, on my way down, I like slipped, and I was literally just like fireman pulling down
a tree,
the tree, the last like 5 feet or whatever. But I landed fine, thank goodness. So but that I wanted to capture that sense of, like, you know, like, oh yeah, like, I am watching the world from afar. Like, I'm watching the world from the shadows, based on this like depression, based on this like state of mind that I was in, and now the art that was released, the songs that was released, it was the gesture of, oh hey, you know what, like, I am back. I'm back in a way, but this is the result of that. So yeah, it carries a lot of meaning for me because I always wanted to put out music, and you know I'm really grateful for all the people that like helped me make it possible. And
yeah, and congrats on getting there. I know just
Thank
even
you.
getting it out into the world in itself is a big accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So I wanted to ask about the song Radio.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think that's the second track.
Yeah.
Really beautiful melody. Speaking about melodies, that opening guitar riff or guitar figure is really nice and really draws you in right away.
Thank you.
So I just want to ask about the songwriting process for that, because another thing that stands out about it is that the structure is like it's like a progression. It's not like your typical A, B, A bridge. So how did you go about piecing that together?
I love that song. I'll be honest, that's the first song I started writing when I decided I want to be a songwriter. It was quite literally. It's actually funny that we talk about this because yesterday was my third anniversary for working at my job that I am now, and I started that job at the same time I started writing Radio.
Where's the job? Do you want to share?
Yeah, that's fine. It's I work for it's a place called Go Engineer. It's it's a company that sells and licenses engineering software.
Okay.
Right, and so I work as a support engineer, helping other engineers when their software doesn't work. So just tech support, but
sure.
I'm really grateful for it because everyone's so nice. It's such a good place to work. And it pays well for what I need just to support my music and myself.
Yeah, that's huge.
Then it relates to my what I got my degrees in. So it's really cool. And so I actually was writing that song as I started that job. And the way it came about was I'll approach this, I guess, from the practical side, and then also the meaning of the song side. The meaning of the song relates to dreams, and aspirations, right? And I was in this headspace of wanting to do music, right? At the time, I had a friend who was working as a nurse at a oncology apartment, oncology clinic, and she was telling me about how they made me sign an NDA or something, some kind of document to say, oh, hey, if you work here, you can't sue us if you get cancer, because the technicians and the nurses there that end up working there have a higher risk of getting cancer.
Really?
Yeah, and so it gave me this inspiration of this concept of there's this idea of someone in a job, someone in a situation where it's slowly kind of killing them. And
in that case, literally, potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the way I got it was I won't share her last name, but so the way I came with the name was I was okay, radiation is what was used to treat cancer in certain ways, and then using part of her last name, I came up with instead of it being radiation, right? I added a Y in between the A and the D of, and then took away the N, TION, and then that just became the name of the song, Radia, because it's a combination of radiation and this girl's last name, and so that's the general theme of the song. Now, when it came to be was I wanted to do something difficult. I very much wanted to challenge myself with that song, and I wanted to be able to come up with a guitar part that I would never have heard of before. Now, I do draw inspiration from Landslide heavily for that song, but I wouldn't even call it an augmented or interpolated Travis picking necessarily. So so that's kind of where that stemmed from. And so I was okay, I want to play something that it's going to take me 3 months to learn, and it did. I kid you not.
Wow.
I found the chord that I wanted. But then I realized that the limitations of the tuning I was in was made it so that I couldn't play what I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up tuning the high and the low E string up a half step, which allows me to do the kinds of hammer-ons and the kinds of bass and the moving and to interact with the moving bass line that I do. So then once that started coming together, I actually, like maybe like a year later, I brought it to some friends because we got into like this circle and at the studio, and we were like, hey, we got songs, like, hey, let's figure out some songs that we want to record and stuff. And then I played them Radia, and it was missing one part, which is the harmonic section. And which is after the quote unquote breakdown, where I'm like strumming heavily, and my friend who helped engineer my first EP, he helped engineer it. He had heard that harmonic section in a different voice note that I sent to him, and so he said, like, dude, like, what if you put this in here? And I was like, wait, that's so. So then once I did do that, it helped me adjust the song a little bit with the theme and the flow of the lyrics and the narrative, and that's essentially how it came to be, the full version of the song. When it comes to like writing those chords or whatnot, I just was trying to find something that plays with the relationship between melody and chords. Like I've been a lot of what I like to write things that have an inherent melody in them. I don't necessarily like, sometimes I'll use chords, but when I like use chords, I like to do it in it because I grew up listening to classic rock and like Van Halen. Like a lot of times Eddie Van Halen would write things where it's like you can sing the guitar part that he's playing, right? And so it's not just like switching to the C chord and then the G and then the E minor and so on and so forth. It's more like, no, like there's like a melody behind this. And so I try to bring that and play with the relationship between like melody and chords, so that way, like if I'm playing a chord, I'm gonna make a melody out of it. Or if I'm playing a melody, like I'm actually gonna like make a chord out of it. Right. And so so the rest of the sections of the songs, that's where it came from. And then to finish the song, like the last 5 or 10% of like writing that song actually came from improvisation and mistakes at open mics. Because I find it's a very good testing ground to like get comfortable with the song.
It's the best,
yeah, it's so helpful and so healthy.
And hard also.
It is hard,
it's scary and like can be discouraging and all that too, right?
Yeah,
that's part of it.
It is, and that's part of the beauty of it, is that taking the time to put yourself out there and be scared and really be nervous
and vulnerable,
and then getting over that, because once you get over it, that's because like I heard this once, and I don't know what the actual reference was, but they said that like when we're afraid or we're scared or we're nervous or so on and so forth, like our frontal lobe, like the front part of our brain, like kind of like turns off in a way, or it's not as active or whatever, right? Because your
thinking becomes like binary more so.
Exactly, right? And you're kind of you're in survival mode in a way. And so part of the beauty of going to the open mics and playing radio so much of the open mics was that as once I started to get comfortable, this turns back on, and then I don't feel nervous. Oh, I'm gonna like try things. I'm gonna try doing this in a different rhythm, a little bit of a stop here, right? Or maybe the dynamics coming out of the second chorus need to be a little different, than the first chorus, right? And so all those things. So a lot of times, like some of the parts on the song, like that if anyone listens, like a lot of those nuances, those little small bits, come from like, oh, I just accidentally played that because I felt comfortable with this song, and then it became part of the song.
Man. Yeah.
So open mics are so helpful, and it's so healthy to be around other musicians, and it's so healthy to be around you and everyone else that's so supportive and stuff too. So I really couldn't do it without all y'all. So
very cool. All right, man, what an interesting story about how that song came to be. A lot went into it, it sounds like. Cool. My next question, I don't know if this might be tough to answer, but it seems to me like you write your songs from like a pretty emotionally honest place. They're not what you would call like light or like sing-song type of music. Is there a challenge in writing from that sort of emotionally honest place? Or is it just natural to you? Is that just what you have to say?
That's a good question. If I'm being honest, like there's two parts to this answer. The first part is very simple. Like I have a hard time feeling anything, if I'm being honest. Like a lot of times in life, I'm very numb, and a lot of emotional or mental sensations are very kind of stunted to me. Whether that's how like the way like working with depression is, or it's just kind of maybe how I've developed as a person. And so when it comes to like writing these songs from this place, it's not that it's difficult, it's just that it really just comes down to me opening myself up to whatever comes out, right? It's and I don't have any quarrel with what comes out, right? And so that's the first part of the answer. However, I will say going forward, and what I've been learning recently, and I've been trying to do more of, is actually pay attention to two things when it comes to songwriting: pain and excitement, right? And so as like right now, as I can write songs now, I am trying to pay attention when I'm writing. So like what causes me the most pain, right? Because I'm feel numb, relatively speaking, like I'm now searching and yearning to feel something from my songs. And so now what I'm using as the guiding light behind like what ideas and concepts or pieces of inspiration I use is my emotional reaction to it. So that won't just be excitement. It might not just be like, oh, I'm so stoked about this guitar part. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I do this and then I do that. And it's like, no, it's not just that. It's also like, oh dang, like I just played that and I'm like shaking. Like I can't. Like it hurts to play this part, or it hurts to sing this, or it hurts to write this and read that, right? And so those two sides of it are now kind of how I am attempting to do, as you said, as to get and access where the content of the songs comes from. I do this. I have my day job because like I want to be able to write what I want to write. So I guess I'm not like reserved about it. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's actually a healthy approach. That I guess that nervousness you feel with those emotions, that's how you know they're true and valid. And I think writing from that place is like really like the only real place you can write from. Anything that's not from that place is going to have like some secondary drives, which might not be the most healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like, it's a good point. I think we all write for different reasons. Right.
That too. Yeah.
We all write for different reasons. At the same time, like using our individual uniqueness, the filter that we interpret this world through, that's very specific to us. And so there is a great degree of value in honing in on that and making, like I've heard so many stories of people writing songs, even though if they're songwriters for like other people, like for like some major acts, like just stories I hear like whatever online, and it's like the way that they're able to just be authentic, right, and think about and approach the song from like their perspective, but then being able to make it for another artist, for millions of people, right? And so like but very much so, it's like, this idea of like, oh, it's gotta be this or gotta be that, or like that almost that limits how our individuality can be, it expresses itself creatively. So yeah, no, really good point though. Yeah, it's like that nervousness is really something to tap into, and
For sure.
that's something I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm still always practicing it, because like, I've written songs to write songs, and they come out and they're the way they are, but really honing in on like, what is this song doing to me, is a next, I think, a next step for me. So grateful for that, but really well put. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, we're gonna go deep. That
Yeah, sure.
response reminded me of a question I had. I saw on your Instagram you had that Viktor Frankl quote about what is life asking of you. Do you know the quote off the top of my head? I should have written it down, but it's something along the lines of, our task is to figure out what life is asking of us and to respond to that. So I wanted to ask you, what has been your answer to that? Have you found an answer to that, or even just a temporary answer?
Yeah, for me, actually, like that, I'll be honest, like that's a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. That book is part of the reason why, like, I'm alive. It's also part of the reason why I'm actually doing music. It was 2023, January of 2023. I was not in the best place, and however, my therapist had recommended that book to me.
Man's Search for Meaning?
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And man, that book, it really changed my life. It put a lot of things in perspective. So what I found was that, like I believe, part of the reason why I'm here is to be able to make music, to be an artist, and to and to try and create things for myself and for other people if I can help them. That book was just very, very, very foundational in arriving to that conclusion, because the book, one of the things the book talks about is like, the main point, I think that maybe the one way to summarize it is that human beings require meaning.
Yeah.
They require purpose. That is from Viktor Frankl's observations, a proven thing. Like he was in
necessity.
He was in concentration camps with human beings that were stripped of absolutely everything, right? But he observed that the ones that had purpose and had chose to bring meaning into their own lives were the ones that actually were more likely to survive than the ones that didn't.
Right.
The ones that didn't have it actually, in those circumstances, succumbed to illness.
Right.
Like environmental illnesses and injury, and like died off. And it's incredibly dramatic and incredibly tragic, but also very important observation that he made. And so for me, I knew, being in my mental state, like I had to find some meaning to my life, and that's what helped me arrive at. It was music, and that's when I started going to open mics. That's when I started really writing and going out and putting myself out there, and it's helped me so much. And because there's three ways to derive meaning, according to his book. There's like love, which comes from relationships. There is craft, work, a passion, for example, right? And the third one is sacrifice, sacrifice and something.
Service.
Service, exactly. Yeah. And so those three ways are any combination of the three, or one of those three, are ways in which humans can find meaning, in life, to give themselves a sense of purpose and to carry the burden that is life, and he kind of coined this term, like tragic optimism, where it's like, yes, life is difficult, but there can be meaning to it, right?
Yeah.
And it can become better than it is currently. So that book is very important to me, and I'm very grateful for it. Shout out to my therapist, and I recommend everyone reads it. It's like up there with like 1984. If I'm being honest, like it's one of those books that like if every high schooler read it, I'd just be like,
change a lot of things.
Yeah,
probably.
for sure. Yeah. So that's what the book did to me, in a nutshell. So yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. I need to hear that. Honestly,
Yeah.
We all get into our ruts here and there, so that's good.
Yeah, it's a short read too. It's not long. It's not a long book.
Yeah.
It's heavy, but like it's not a long book. So.
Right. Yeah. All right. You heard it here first. Go check out Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
Let's see. A few more questions.
Yeah, sure.
What's been your proudest accomplishment so far as a musician?
Ooh, that's it. I think it's probably a combination of two things. Like, I mean, the simplest answer is like, just starting.
Yeah,
deciding to start.
Deciding to start.
Yeah, like just deciding to start. That was like, I mean, like logically in the chain of events, if that was not there, then none of this would have happened. But that was the biggest. That's probably one of the biggest things. It's like, I just chose to start and to try.
Made it happen for yourself.
Yeah.
That's good because I think a lot of people get hung up on expecting a lot in return for putting your music out there or starting to create it, this and that, but it sounds a bit corny, but it's like a gift to yourself, that's the most important thing first and foremost, and anything that comes with it I think should be looked at as secondary,
That's a good point. And actually that reminds me of this kind of relationship because of like like cause and effect, where I think we live in a world now where we're used to getting a lot for very little.
For sure.
Right?
Everything's so instantaneous. Like delayed gratification is like gone out the window more and more,
It really is. And there is, of course, there's benefits to the efficiency and the optimization of our current world, right? And it's helped a lot of people. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like in the past, a lot of times you put in a lot and get nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to keep doing that.
Think about maybe like a farmer whose crops go to hell, or that's just one example out of a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Or and so of course, like both of those situations have been around for certain times, but I think it's more prevalent nowadays. And what is even more true is that what's front facing to every person in humanity is like getting a lot out of very little, right? And so I think because with social media and how we're always barraged, our attention's always barraged with so many different things, and so it almost like it's like trying to it almost leaves us with the thought or the concept, the belief that's like oh no, this is how it should work. I put in just a little bit and then I get all of this crazy stuff. Like because I click a button and I get all this dopamine, I get all these good feelings rushing through me, right? Just by a small interaction, a small stimulus, a small input, right? But in reality, that's not necessarily how it works all the time. When we're doing something that's worth doing, and so we go a long time without you and I, every open micer, a lot of musicians, we go a long time without ever having graphic. Even entrepreneurs, people starting small businesses, people who are trying to accomplish anything. A lot of
long-term goal.
Yeah, at the beginning, you don't have the gratification, you don't have the response, you don't have the stimulus of you're doing the right thing, and so that definitely changes. That changes how we go. It's changed how we go about things, and so going back to what we were saying, I think it's important that as artists we give ourselves grace, and we appreciate the fact that we just starting is such a big deal.
Yeah.
It's such a big deal, and even if something doesn't come out of it right away, it's like it's not a bad thing. So,
yeah, that's important to keep in mind, to be gentle with yourself, I guess, during the process. That's another big part of it, because I don't know, a lot of artists can be self-critical and perfectionists, so there's space for that, but there's also, you need to keep in mind that what you're doing is difficult, and to kind of, be gentle with yourself along the way.
Yeah, I really think so. I think like I think of it like, when being gentle at the start, they say like, I don't know the exact saying, but there's a relationship between going slow and steady, and then eventually working your way up to going fast.
Consistency too.
Exactly, and going slow consistently helps you build up to the speed that you want to get at. And so, when anyone is going through something at the start, being gentle at the beginning, allowing yourself to build up the reps, will then open yourself up to later down the line being able to push yourself faster and faster and faster.
Yeah,
and
when you
need
to.
And you're going to feel that momentum.
Right.
So I think that's a hell of a good thing. And I would say there's a second part to the question with regards to like, with regards to one of the answers that I talked about was like attention and whatnot. The other part of it was, I'm trying to think. I'm gonna think of it later. But
okay.
Yeah. It's
when it comes back, if it comes back. But that's
sure.
Great answer.
Yeah, but that's a very good question too, though. Yeah, it's like,
for sure.
It's and it's tough. Life's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy being human. We don't get an instruction manual.
But you got to. I think it's also important to choose your struggles. And I think it's like a beautiful thing to struggle with, is trying to be creative and honest. So it's worthwhile.
Sure. It is. Yeah, it's nourishing. It's nourishing to yourself and the community as well. Even though authenticity nowadays is being commodified. Within our personal communities, like it's authenticity is still such a healthy thing. And the creation is very much a great way to partake in that.
For sure.
So, yeah. Like, if I may ask, like, was there a point where you found yourself opening yourself to be more authentic, right? Was there like a threshold or like a point, an edge that you were a ledge that you were standing on, where it's like, oh, I have to take this leap now, for you creatively?
Man, what a good question. I don't know if that ever came musically. I feel like my music is always just, the way it comes is just what's happening. I don't even have any filter, like this is just what it's got to be, or it's going to be nothing.
Yeah.
But my creativity jumps around from music to, I do some photography. This is a form of creativity, and I've been writing a lot lately too. So I think lately in my writing, I do a lot of journaling too, to help me process. Like, I've definitely reached that level recently in my journaling, where for a long time I kept a lot of stuff to myself.
Yeah.
And now I'm just reaching the point where I'm learning that now the progression of that is to open that up. Yeah. And that's what people do with music. Right now I'm doing it with words and little essays and pieces like that. But there's definitely that leap where the pain of holding it in is greater than the pain of letting it go. Or wait, did I get that flip-flopped?
No, I think say it one more time. Yeah,
pain of holding it in gets outweiged by the pain of letting it go, meaning you're pushed to let it go.
There's a gravity. There's a potential, and there's a pull to having it get out, right? And the effort to resist that can cause pain internally. That's a good point. Yeah.
And you got to trust to be able to sit in that space that eventually you can overcome it and break through it. So.
Time being the main variable there. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Time is a very underrated variable, and it's something that, it's not everyone takes it for granted. Some people do, but it's understandable. We live in a very fast paced and very stimulated and optimized world, and creating that space, creating just a space right? And like carving something out, whether it's even if like people talk about this for like productivity purposes, where you're creating a space. Just okay, like on this day, I'm gonna say just like block out my calendar, 1 hour creativity. If nothing happens, fine. But like the fact that like I show up and I'm there for like 1 hour to try and be creative, like that has that has so much power for change. You know, and so time and space being two things that you touched on. Those are very good points. I'm glad though that like it flows well for you for music, and I imagine engaging in different like avenues creatively, like really can almost kind of nourish other parts of yourself. I find that with like drawing and whatnot. You know, when I'm drawing or I'm writing stories, or like I am journaling, or so on and so forth. Like the practice of having inspiration and executing on it is can be translated to whatever creative act you're doing. So,
yeah, and also with the music, I guess I struggle with stage fright a lot. Like I have a hard time showing up confidently on stage. So a lot of times just the act of getting up there and performing is just a mini breakthrough, time and time again.
Yeah.
It definitely fades to the back if I'm more consistent with it, like if I'm going out 2 or 3 times a week, but even so, it's always going to be there to a certain extent. So just the act of getting up and playing in front of people is always a good way to jump over that gap, over and over and over.
For sure, yeah. And I will say, like, I'm scared. I'm always scared too. Like it never goes away from me. But like it's awesome that you're able to do it, because it does have that that transformative property to it,
Yeah, and not taking the leap is like, I don't know. There's no life in that, It's the leap is there to be jumped over.
Yeah,
the gap is there to be jumped over.
Exactly, and it's like inviting, but in a kind of like a scary way, So
yeah, good stuff.
Awesome, yeah.
All right. Advice to anyone who wants to do what you do. Maybe someone first starting out, or someone taking their first steps.
I would say, I would say that I'd start my answer by saying, like, I am myself, and there are things that worked for me that might work for other people and they might not. And given my limited awareness, my limited cognitive function, and my inability to perceive everything that happens and has ever happened to anyone, it's hard for me to give exact advice about what people should do.
So I'm glad you said that, because it's so specific to each person, right?
It is, and so I can say what worked for me.
Yeah, what worked for you, sure.
And I can also give like maybe a couple general recommendations. I mean, at the start of it, I try to think about it like writing in a written metaphor, where the first thing I would say is to try to work on, or to arrive at the conclusion that, like, whoever is listening to this, or whoever is looking for advice, wants to be alive. The spark of our souls, like, from my perspective, like, even if someone comes from a naturalistic perspective, like, it's hard. It's very hard. Life is hard in and of itself, and not wanting to be alive can make things very hard. And so I would implore anyone to try and find like a way or a reason to at least like keep going, and to try to want to be here. Outside of that, the next thing is, and this I would like, I think Quincy Jones said this really well. Like he would tell all of his kids, it's like, figure out who you are, right?
Huge.
And figure out who you are, and love who you are. So number one, like, want to be alive, choose to live, right? And then and I know some people don't feel that way all the time, and I know it's hard. It's hard like that, and it's not always easy. So, but as long as we're trying, and then second thing, try to figure out who you are, and then the third thing would be figure out what you want. Who you are will help influence, and help you figure out what you want. But once you figure out those three things, like I would say, like, so much of the picture becomes very, 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 very clear. And that's the general advice. The more specific advice, because I don't want to give any like moral or any kind of like like a help advice that like is specific to myself necessarily, because we all are different like that, but I know that those three things can be very just universally applied to any human. So specifically though, in terms of music, I would say this is if music is something that someone wants to do, there's two pieces of advice, and they're on two ends of the extreme, right? One is very there's three pieces of advice. One is centered in the present, one comes from the past, and then one is more directed towards the future, right? The present question is the present advice is to do it, right? Simply put, like, please, just do it. If you feel like you want to do it, then do it.
That's
and go
usually,
for it.
if anyone asks me, that's kind of what I say. You just gotta, you find your way as you, the road appears as you start to walk on it.
Exactly, and as you do that, then along the way, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why you're doing it. It's okay to ask that. I think that asking the question why is healthy. Yeah. It can be scary, but it's very healthy, I think. And so ask yourself why you want to do it, right? Because one thing that Viktor Frankl said, he said, and I might not get the quote exactly, but is like a person with the right why can overcome almost any how. Yeah. Right? Meaning, like, if someone has the right reason, the right meaning, the right why, it's like Simon Sinek, start with why, right? I think that's the name of the title. So if once you start, ask yourself on the way, hey, why do I want to do this? Like, oh yeah, like I like this. So it's like, oh, where's this come from? And then the third piece of advice for specifically to music is, I got from John Mayer. He had this like Berkeley lecture. That he gave. It was like 2008 maybe. It's after he shaved his head or something. But but like he basically was like telling this auditorium full of Berkeley students, like, yo, define your expectations, right? And so that third future-oriented question is like, what do you want out of this? I guess you don't have to get the answer right away, but it's good to ask it, as you progress. Yeah. Because what that'll help you do is for me, it helps so much with not comparing myself to other people and not being so self-critical with whatever outcomes or results that I get out of the music that I do. Yeah. So like I said, the first three things are just general, and just like, choose to be alive, figure out who you are and love who you are, and then 3, figure out what you want, and then for music specific, do it. Just start, and then along the way ask yourself, okay, why do I want to do this? And then looking forward, ask yourself, like, hey, what are my expectations? Like, what do I want out of this? And that goes into without literally me giving any specific advice, because people are going to figure out they want it. It's like some people, like they got the guitar and they got their voice, and they might, I developed my guitar playing before I started trying to develop my voice. But like for them, it might be the opposite. So those things I think will be helpful. I think so. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Couldn't add anything to that if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate you, Rowdy.
All right, brother. We're out of here. Hey.